You're now watching the Mike Missanelli Podcast on the BetRivers Network.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Mike Missanelli Podcast. We are at Friday, April 19th, so we're going into a weekend where the Sixers play in the first round of the NBA playoffs. This is podcast number 178 of the Mike Missanelli Podcast, brought to us by BetRivers. To reach me, email. I told you I was going to do this at the start of every show now. Mike@MikeMiss.com. Very easy to get in touch with me if you disagree or agree or just have just general stuff to say to me that you may want to be included on the podcast. So we're always open to those kind of things. Brought to us by BetRivers. Keith Pompey, who covers the Sixers, will give us his preview of this upcoming series with the New York Knicks. And this hasn't happened in a long time, playing the Knicks in the playoffs. In fact, it last happened in 1989. And we'll take a closer look at that series, which was really kind of an embarrassment for Philadelphia 76ers fans. But let's look at this particular series, Sixers versus the Knicks. And, of course, the Knicks starting lineup will go with three Villanova guys. Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo at the perimeter with Isaiah Hartenstein and OG Anunoby. And, of course, Mitchell Robinson, they're going to get minutes from also as a backup center. Their bench is pretty good. Deuce McBride has been getting a lot of minutes as a backup guard. Bojan Bogdanovic, Alec Burks, Precious Achua, and occasionally they'll put in this 6'11 guy named Jericho Sims who could jump out of the building. It's just waste a couple of minutes if people are in foul trouble. The Sixers, believe it or not, are favored to win this series, which was kind of baffling to me since the Knicks won 50 games this year. But the odds makers are saying the Sixers are a slight favorite, even though they don't have home court advantage. The Sixers are at minus 120. I've seen minus 115 in other places. The Knicks minus 108. The Knicks at home. Now, this is a home court advantage. They're 27-14 this year at home. So they're pretty good at the Garden. So here's the schedule. Game one is tomorrow, Saturday, 6 p.m. ESPN game. Game two will be Monday, 7:30 on TNT. Game three will be Thursday on TNT, also 7:30. Game four is a 1 p.m. Sunday matinee on ABC. And then you got games 5, 6, and 7, if necessary, Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. Times not determined as of yet. Okay, so this is a matchup that's going to be really interesting. And I look at it in this mode. The Sixers are not a quick team as far as pace goes. But the Knicks are even less of a pace team. The Knicks are 30th in the league. So the Knicks want to control it in a half-court set with Jalen Brunson making everything work with dribble handoffs and pick and rolls and stuff like that. The Sixers are not an overly quick team either. They're 18th in pace. So I'm thinking that maybe the Sixers need to quicken up the pace against the Knicks in this particular series. And I'm sure that Nick Nurse is attuned to that. Of course, the big factor, will Joel Embiid be healthy through an entire 7-game series? I think this could very well go 7 games. If the Sixers are going to win it, I think they'd have to win it in 6, win that game 6 at home rather than risk a game 7 in the Garden, which I think will be tough for them to win. And, of course, when you get a game 7, a clinch-out elimination game, you always have the questions about whether Embiid's going to deliver, because we saw last year what happened, and people are very wary of that. They're very wary of him staying healthy in this series, whether he needs a break, how many minutes can he play. Now, he looked gassed against the Miami Heat in the play-in game, but he somehow resurfaced in the fourth quarter and gave him really good minutes. It scored 11 points, could do a couple of threes and then one, and a great pass to Kelly Oubre. Did a lot of good things in that fourth quarter. So it's a mystery. I have no idea how this is going to look. I know his knee is bothering him. You can tell his knee's bothering him. It's not 100% healthy. He's got a big brace on it. So we'll see if this happens. That's the big thing for me is how they control Jalen Brunson. Who will they control him with? Now, they can throw different bodies at him, and they will throw different bodies at him. They'll if Melton can play, they'll use Melton on him a lot. They'll use Kelly Oubre with his length on him a lot. I don't know if that's advisable because Kelly sometimes gets lazy on defense. They can use Batum on him. They have multiple guys that can face up with Jalen Brunson and kind of impede his progress. He likes to post up. He likes to get in deep. He has been shooting the three-pointer very well. And I'll tell you, I could never envision the time when I would analyze a series and say, you got to stop Jalen Brunson. I mean, this is like outlandish to me that this kid is now a bona fide star in the league. All right, so I told you about the last time the Sixers and the Knicks played in the playoff series. So harken back, 1989. The Sixers were swept in a 5-game series. Not only that, but New York Knickerbocker players, including that punk Mark Jackson and Charles Oakley and Sidney Green, guys like that, took out a broom and went sweeping the Spectrum floor, went on the floor sweeping it. Oh, can you imagine? So if you remember the series, I'm going to give you some names on who was on that 76er team in 1989. Of course, they were coached by Jimmy Lynam. Charles would be Charles. And Rick Pitino was the Knicks coach. So the Sixers rolled out the following: Charles Barkley, Mo Cheeks. It would be the last year that Mo Cheeks would play for the Sixers. He would be traded after this season to the San Antonio Spurs. Who did they get from the San Antonio Spurs? Well, we'll tell you that later. Think about it. Barkley, Cheeks, Jaminski, Hersey Hawkins, Ron Anderson were your starters. Off the bench, Gerald Henderson, Derek Smith, Scotty Brooks, Christian Velp, and Ben Coleman. For the Knicks, Gerald Wilkins, Johnny Newman, Pat Ewing, Mark Jackson, Charles Oakley. Off the bench came Rod Strickland, Kiki Vandeweghe, Sidney Green, and Trent Tucker. All names in the past. And they embarrassed the Sixers in 3 straight and took the brooms out. Man, that can't happen, man. That cannot happen. So it's amazing that the Sixers and Knicks have not played the playoffs all these years. In 1989, we remember that very well. All right, so who wins this series? I think the Sixers can win it. I really do. And if it gets to a Game 7, I may have to change that. But I think the Sixers can handle the Knicks in this series. I don't think the Knicks are that powerful a team where you go, wow, they're just going to overmatch the Sixers. I think the Sixers can win this series. And the next series, believe it or not, I think they can win no matter what team it is. The Milwaukee Bucks are really scuffling, so they don't scare me as much anymore. And Giannis is coming off an injury. And then you got the Indiana Pacers, who could upset the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round. So you're telling me that the Sixers couldn't beat the Pacers in a 7-game series, which would lead them into an Eastern Conference final against the Boston Celtics, which I don't, be honest, I don't think they could beat Boston in a 7-game series, especially with the Celtics having home court advantage. All right, now our good buddy Tim Legler, who you see all over the place these days, especially on ESPN, was on First Take the other day, and I was really interested to hear what Tim Legler said, and he said the following, and we're going to play exactly what he said, but if I could paraphrase, Tim Legler said the Knicks should be licking their chops to play the Sixers because Embiid is not right. Here's what Tim Legler had to say on First Take.
Well, I'll sum up how nasty it was. I'm talking directly to the city officials in Philadelphia, maybe even the governor in the state of Pennsylvania right now. The statue of Nicholas Batum should be erected. That statue should be up by the time they play their first home game against the Knicks, okay, by Game 3. Because, listen, here's why. Without Nicholas Batum last night, their season lasts 4 more games. 4 more games. At most, they might lose against the winner of the 9-10. If they win that game, they're getting swept by the Celtics the way Joel Embiid looks right now. So if I'm the Knicks, I'm watching that, I'm licking my chops for all the reasons they both said. There's 3 things when you watch Embiid. It's not the shot making. He's always going to make shots. He could be out there in a full body cast. He's going to make shots because he's that skilled. 3 things I always look for whenever we're talking about Embiid and an injury. Is he changing ends of the floor? He was not changing ends of the floor. Is he sealing like with intent in the paint? Nope. He wasn't doing it at all. And then does he move laterally defensively? To Allen's point, when he's really good on top of his game, even the way he looked when he first came back from the injury during that 5 or 6 game stretch to close out the season, when he is tracking guards to the rim, when they've turned the corner on him and he's jumped out, when he is going, block to meet a guy as the last line of defense, when you see that explosiveness defensively, that's when you know Joel Embiid is right. It has nothing to do with shot making. He's always going to do that. It's the other things, and none of that was there. If I'm the Knicks and I'm watching that game, I am licking my chops right now because Joel Embiid is not right.
Well, our special guest for today's Mike Missanelli podcast, the man who covers the Sixers, been covering it for a really long time. He's winning awards left and right for his writing. And this is a big series to cover for the Philadelphia 76ers in the playoffs against the New York Knicks after they survived against Miami Heat. We welcome in Keith Pompey from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Hello, Keith.
What's up, Mike? Thanks for having me on, man.
My pleasure, man. And, first of all, I don't know how to handicap this series. On one hand, I look at the Knicks where, I don't see them as the number 2 seed. I hadn't seen them as the 2 seed all this season. All of a sudden, they rise up as the 2 seed. And I don't think it's that daunting to think that the Sixers can win this series and move on and maybe get another break in the second series. Am I being too optimistic here or what?
You sound a little optimistic, because you normally keep it real, keep it 100. But I have to say, man, I agree with you. I do feel like that the way things are set up, if the Sixers, Joel is healthy, can play, I do feel like it's set up for the Sixers to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals against Boston. I really do.
All right, let's break this down. First of all, let's go back in time, and then we'll look forward to the Knicks. The Sixers were very fortunate to win that game against the Heat, and maybe if Jimmy Butler was 100%, they wouldn't have done that because every offensive possession had to go through Tyler Hero. He's so all over the place. They just didn't have enough guys that could score the basketball. So on one hand, the Sixers are getting lauded for being tough at the end of the game, and Embiid especially. But on the other hand, I look at it like it's mitigated by the fact that Miami didn't have much for him in that fourth quarter. How did you see that game?
You know what? That's a great observation. Miami didn't have much in that fourth quarter. I mean, they had to run everything from Tyler Hero. They didn't have Terry Rozier playing, who's been torching the Sixers since he's been with the Heat. So, my thing is, yes, but also you can't discount the shots that Joel Embiid made. You can't discount how the momentum changed, right, when Nico Batum caught on fire. So, and he also did make some big shots. Now, the one thing is, yes, Jimmy Butler plays phenomenal. But in the past, a lot of the things that really destroyed the Sixers were Tyler Hero shooting, Duncan Robinson shooting, and also their zone defense, right? So it just seems like the Sixers figured those two things out. And I think that for that, I give the Sixers more of what the Sixers did as opposed to what Jimmy Butler was unable to do.
Yeah, I get. I mean, I don't want to take away anything from the Sixers, but I'm watching that game and I'm going, the Tyler Hero backcourt violation is something that Jimmy Butler would not have permitted.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler would have controlled that basketball in the fourth quarter, and Hero is he's light and he just got bullied into that turnover. It was a monster turnover for the Heat in that game. But let's talk about Embiid because. In the first half, and you looked at social media and go, it's the same old thing with this guy. He's hurt. He looked gassed. He's got the hands on the shorts, which is always a sign. And then he, had a resurgence in the fourth quarter. So what are we expecting from him? You know how hurt he is. Can he pull this off in a long series?
That's tough, Mike, to say. It's weird. And I think no one really knows the answer right now because, like you said, you saw in the first 3 quarters, he shot 3 for 12. He was horrible. And then in the fourth quarter, he looked like he was Embiid before the All-Star break, right? So, I mean, it's a tough question. That's the $1 million question. Now, my thing is, I feel like if he gets some help from Maxey and if they don't have to go 7 games or something like that, yeah, he'll do well. But I think if it's like a grind out, I think Embiid is going to be gassed in Game 7, unfortunately. I mean, right now I'm looking at him and I'm wondering, like a lot of people saying, he's out of shape. Nah, it's the knee, man. The knee is bothering him. And that's like preventing him from doing certain things. And can he show up and give you spot things? Yeah. but I don't know if you're going to expect Joel to average 40 minutes doing all types of stuff on that knee. I don't see it happening. I don't.
There's some people who look at it and go, he's playing possum. Like he all of a sudden but the knee, it looks like it is bothering him a little bit.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you look at the lift; he wasn't really getting the lift. And another thing is, I think it's also, if I'm the Sixers, I'm hoping it's just a mental thing that's really preventing them. Like, when what I mean by that is, a lot of times you see defense, you see him reacting a little slow, you see him like not jumping as high because maybe he's fearful that he's going to re-injure the knee. And to me, that's something that, look, man up, everything's going to be good, you're going to be fine. But if it's like worse than that, then I think they're in trouble. Because if you notice, like Embiid is trying to block shots and guys are like climbing him and he's falling back, and hitting the stanchion a couple times. So it doesn't look good, but if it's something mental, then maybe they can overcome it. But if it's that knee, he's not playing possum, y'all. He's not playing possum.
All right, Keith, we're talking to Keith Pompey, the Philadelphia Inquirer. Let's look at the Knicks and what they're up against here. And, we all have seen the season that Jalen Brunson has had to the point where he's probably a top 5 NBA player on that all NBA team. But what will they have to do to curtail what the Knicks do here?
It's weird. I think like the 76ers rely heavily. Well, right now they're trying to rely heavily on that 2-man game and getting other guys incorporated. To me, I think you need Tobias Harris to step up. He's going to have to play well, right? Also, it's weird. Really, they're going to have to throw a lot of bodies at Brunson. Like a lot of guys. They know that Brunson loves to maneuver, do a lot of things. They like doing switches, getting them onto the right guys. So it just seems like they're going to have their heads. I hate saying this for basketball, but they're going to have their heads on the swivel. Guys going to have to fight through screens. They're going to have to play really well and show him a crowd and force other people to beat him. As much as I like Dante DiVincenzo and I like Josh Hart and all those guys, I'd rather have them trying to shoot shots than Jalen Brunson driving the lane and hitting step back threes on me. So I think that they have to show him a crowd, but you need Tobias and other guys to step up.
All right, now they have, and I don't know what Mitchell Robinson's health situation is these days, but they do have a lot of fouls in the middle with Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson. So I assume they're going to try to bang Embiid every chance they get.
Oh, no doubt. Definitely. And it's going to be one of those things where, like, right now they're telling them, look, guys, if we win this series, it's y'all. And, I mean, you guys have to get physical with him. He's going to get to the foul line, but you got to nudge him. We got to make sure we're going to try to do what the Heat did. Don't allow him to get to his spots. And if we do that, we feel like we may have a chance. The one thing about Hartenstein is, I just messed up my man's name.
It's Hartenstein. Hartenstein.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the CH in there.
My man H, right?
It's Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Frankenstein, not Frankenstein. Frankenstein.
So the thing about it is he's one of those Euros. And the thing about those European players, they're like disciplined on the defensive end. And a lot of times they're physical. He's a little slender compared to Embiid, but he's disciplined. So those are the guys that don't get into a lot of foul trouble like Embiid when he does that rip through and all that other stuff. So that will be interesting to see. But I do expect Mitchell Robinson to get a lot of fouls and get into foul trouble. But they're going to bang him. They're going to be physical with him.
Here's the thing that worries me. The Knicks consistently play like dogs. They play hard all the time. Thibodeau doesn't allow them not to play hard. And they have guys who buy into that type of thing. Josh Hart is like an amazingly hard player, and he's not an overly talented player, but he blends in so well with what they try to do. The Sixers sometimes look soft to me, and the Knicks never look soft. So, that's the only thing I look at this series, and I go, well, they're going to have to out-tough them in at least one game at the Garden, whether that's a game 1 or 2 or whether that's a game 7. Can they win a game 7 at Madison Square Garden, the Sixers?
They may have to, but I think it's going to be tough, man. It is. And the thing is, the one thing that you said, out tough them, but you got to be smart about it too. Like I feel like certain guys are going to do out tough them. They're going to get baited into getting technicals and may do something crazy. You know what I mean? Like, I could see them trying to get Kelly Oubre to react, right? I can see that happening big time. But, going into the Garden, and it will probably be, a afternoon game on a, you know what I mean? One of those type things, and it's going to be packed. I mean, you lived in New York. I think that it's going to be tough for them to go in there and get that victory. It really is. But I think they don't have any other choice. I mean, that's when big guys got to step up. That's when Joel has to show us, if they go there, he has to show us why he was the second coming of Wilt this season. You know what I mean? In order for him to get that. But it's going to be tough. It really is.
Well, here's the other factor. There's going to be a lot of New York people that overspend to take tickets away from Philadelphia fans. And a lot of season ticket holders might be giving up their tickets. There's going to be a big Knick contingent at the Wells Fargo Center for a lot of these games. So, that's another problem. You mentioned Tobias Harris. And, it's a shame because I'm watching the crowd is just waiting for him to do something poor.
Yeah.
And they're all over. It's like they're groaning when he's taking a shot. They're booing when he's missing that shot. He can't get a break right now from this fan base. So I don't know what's his mindset about this.
He like the one thing is when you talk to Tobias about it, he always like takes the high road, says like, I got to do better, or he just act like he's ignores it. But let's keep it real. Like he's human. He's human, and human people, like, they get a little disappointed. Like, I mean, you're right. He does get booed. The one thing that I will say is funny, like with the 76ers, like, or the fan base or anything in general. Like we look at Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is what, the third option at best. Sometimes they go to Kelly Oubre over him. Now, Kelly struggled. Joel struggled. Maxey struggled. Kyle Lowry struggled. But whenever Tobias was the one taking the shots, it was kind of sort of like, oh, look at him. And then not only that, if they would have lost that game, it wouldn't have been Embiid's knee. It wouldn't have been Embiid was shot 3 for 12. Again, it would have been Tobias let us down. He's getting paid all that money. So I'm pretty sure that is eating Tobias up to a point where I don't expect him to come back next year, even if they offer him, vice versa. I just see this marriage being over. But yeah, it just seems like right now Tobias is the convenient excuse for why they lose. He's the scapegoat, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
he's dead man walking with
Yeah.
this franchise, and the fans know it. And it's funny because there's not one Sixer fan that will even acknowledge that he actually had 10 rebounds in that game. Like,
Oh yeah.
according to the fan, but he did zero.
Yeah.
And he did have 10 rebounds. And he played hard. He just, he's just he doesn't fit anymore. All right, so Keith, let me get your prediction on this. We both think that it's not that hard of a draw to get the Knicks, even though I probably am disrespecting them. And it wouldn't be a hard draw. In the next round, the Milwaukee Bucks aren't the same, and I actually don't think they're going to win that series. So the Sixers would have to beat Indiana, and then get to the Eastern Conference Finals and probably not beat Boston. Is that the way you think it can go?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think that the 76ers, if Joel Embiid is healthy, right? If we don't see, oh my God, Joel's like done for 3 games or something like that, 2 games, I do think that they can get past Indiana. And I do think that they'll lose to the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. I do. I mean, I just think that the way this is set up for the Sixers with the way Milwaukee is playing, Indiana is a great regular season team, but you got to condense your bench in the playoffs. You also, the playoffs is a slower pace game. So the way I look at it is I honestly think that the Sixers, if they can get past the Knicks, they have a legitimate chance of playing in the Eastern Conference Finals. I just don't think they could beat Boston, though.
I don't either. I don't think that the majority of real fans think that can happen either. So they'll get immunity. they'll lose the Eastern Conference Finals and get immunity because people will look at it and go, oh, well, they fought hard. They just weren't as good as Boston. And look at next year when we have all this cap space.
Yeah.
It'll be really a different season than losing in the second round. It'll be, okay, we lost, but.
Yeah, but the problem is, we lost, but the people got to realize, you got all this cap space. You just got to make sure that you get the right players with that cap space, because that's the only thing I don't like, Mike, is that people keep pushing the goalposts back. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we didn't do it, but we're going to have these free agents come, and then next thing you know, we didn't get these free agents, but we're going to do this. We're going to develop the guys we have. And when you keep doing that, you're just pushing it back.
Yeah, and it's not a great free agent class, so they're going to have to probably swing a couple trades to bring in those high-priced players. But that's for another day. Keith Pompey covering the Philadelphia 76ers for the Inquirer. Keith, thanks for spending some time with us. We appreciate it. We'll see you down the road, okay?
Man, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right, always nice to have our pal Keith Pompey on. And, I'm still stunned by what Legler had to say as we went into Keith Pompey. Legler being a little bit of a hater. Come on, T. Legler. All right, in any event, let's move on to the Philadelphia Phillies, who are rolling along because they're playing bad teams right now. The Colorado Rockies stink. I don't understand how Major League teams can really get so run down to the point where they're terrible. And the Rockies are. They did give the Phillies a couple of good fights early in the series. Phillies went up sweeping the Rockies, and now they play the Chicago White Sox, and they should sweep the White Sox or at least take 2 or 3 from the White Sox, which has moved them up in the power rankings in Major League Baseball. Now, I kind of discount wins over the Rockies and the White Sox, but that's okay. If the national people are starting to catch on to the Phillies, that's good, because the one thing the Phillies have been, their starting pitching has been excellent. And so that has really been carrying them, because they're offensively, they haven't been the same old Phillies. So the power rankings right now, Major League Baseball, go as follows. Braves 1, Dodgers, Yankees, Orioles, Rangers, and then the Phillies 6th in the power rankings, just ahead of the Cubs. So, that's encouraging. Now, when we look at their offense, there's the good and the bad. Trey Turner's on fire. 329, he said. His on-base percentage is 386. That's all good. His OPS is pretty good. Bryce Harper's still struggling, though. 217, except for some home runs that he's hit, and 299 on-base percentage. Yet, he's usually close to 400 in on-base percentage. Let's go with the guys that Johan Rojas is up. He's hitting 200 now. He slung in a couple hits the other night, so he's now up to 200. He can't stay at 200. He's got to keep rising, and he's got to get to at least 230, 240. But he's at 200 right now. Maybe that's encouraging. The guy who's not encouraging, and it's worrying me a little bit, is their key reserve, Whit Merrifield, who's really scuffling. 107, he can't seem to find it. This guy's a good hitter, and he is really in a monster slump right now. I'm sure they're going to try to get him more at-bats to get him out of that, and that needs to happen. All right, the starting pitching. Ranger Suarez has become unhittable almost. I was watching him the other day, and he is really difficult to pick up. The way he slings it, they don't pick it up. And he's got really good stuff, and he's got that diving sinker, and there's a really nice changeup. His ERA is 1.73 right now. Wheeler, who's had bad luck in the win-loss totals, is 3.00. Noel is 3.47. Christopher Sanchez is 2.53. And Spencer Turnbull is 1.80. Now, Taijuan Walker's going to come back in rotation. I'm not that excited about that. This guy can't get up to 94 miles an hour. He's like 90, 92, and I think he's going to get shelled at that velocity. But we'll see when he gets back in the starting rotation. Overall, there's a couple of bullpen guys with large ERAs, including Gregory Soto. But their overall pitching staff is 3.56, despite a couple of guys' bullpens who have balloon ERA. So the Phillies pitching has been holding them up so far. And we'll see if that continues. And it should continue at least against the lousy Chicago White Sox. There's two teams. Year after year, the White Sox stink. Like, who runs that organization? They can't, they're getting high draft picks. They stink. They're terrible. And they have no support in Chicago. And And then so the Rockies and the White Sox, you couldn't pick 6 games in a row that would be beneficial to the Phillies. All right, that'll do it for the Mike Missanelli podcast. Thanks everybody for listening. Have a great weekend. Hopefully it warms up. You get some nice weather to do some stuff outdoors. Sixers tomorrow at night, 6:00 at the Garden. Game 1 against the New York Knickerbockers. It's a series I think they can and should win. All right, have a great rest of the day and a good weekend. This is Mike Miss. See you later. Bye-bye.